From the craziest pucks I've ever seen to an NHL team actually drafting a dog, these are 20 NHL facts you didn't know. And I bet you didn't know that the longest NHL game in history lasted 176 minutes and 30 seconds. Yeah, that's over 6 overtimes. And this happened back in 1936 when Mud Bruneteau finally scored the winning goal after almost 3 full games worth of hockey. The players were so tired they could barely skate. Fans were falling asleep in the stands. And some people actually went home and came back the next day thinking the game would still be going. The goalies played for nearly 3 hours straight without a break. And by the end, both teams were just hoping someone would score so they could go home. Yeah, that actually happened. Now, playing hockey for almost 3 hours straight will definitely leave you exhausted, but nothing hurts more than our 19th fact. Because I bet you didn't know about Mario Lemieux's incredible journey with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Back in the 1990s, after Mario had already proven he was one of the greatest players ever, he faced some serious health challenges, including battling cancer and chronic back issues. Despite all that, he fought his way back onto the ice multiple times, showing unbelievable determination and love for the game. While other players had to play through pain and exhaustion, Mario's resilience and ability to come back from setbacks made him a legend in the sport. The Penguins were lucky to have a superstar who could dominate the game when he was on it, no matter what obstacles he faced. Our 18th fact really takes some ice, because I bet you didn't know that the NHL's first outdoor game was played in weather so cold that players were literally slipping and sliding like they were on a frozen pond. The Heritage Classic happened in 2003 between the Edmonton Oilers and Montreal Canadiens, and it was so damn cold that the puck kept bouncing like a rubber ball. Players couldn't feel their hands, fans were wrapped in blankets like they were camping in Antarctica, and the ice was so choppy that goalies were complaining they couldn't see the puck coming through all the snow chunks. But 57,000 people still showed up to watch hockey the way it was meant to be played, outside and freezing their asses off. Alright, but what I'll never get is our 17th fact. The time America sent college kids to beat the best hockey team in the world. Yeah, back in 1980, when the Soviet Union had been destroying everyone for years, America decided to send a bunch of 20-year-old college students to face them at the Olympics. The Soviets had been playing together for over a decade, while the American kids had only been practicing together for 6 months. Vegas odds makers said it was more likely for aliens to land on Earth than for America to win. But those college kids shocked the world and beat the unstoppable Soviets 4-3 in what became known as the Miracle on Ice. Man, talk about David versus Goliath. Our 16th fact is painful to watch, because I bet you didn't know that the NHL once experimented with different puck designs to improve the game. Back in the 1990s, the league tested pucks made with various materials and coatings to try and make them glide better on the ice. But some of these experiments didn't go as planned. Players noticed the puck sometimes behaved unpredictably, making it harder to control and shoot accurately. While none of these pucks caused chaos like bouncing all over the place, the NHL quickly realized that sticking with the classic rubber puck was the best way to keep the game fair and fun. Man, sometimes trying to fix what isn't broken just doesn't work out. But that's nothing compared to our 15th fact, because I bet you didn't know that the very first indoor hockey game was played in 1875, before electricity was even invented. This game happened in Montreal, and they had to use candles and oil lamps to light up the rink because there were no electric lights yet. The players couldn't see jack, the ice was bumpier than a dirt road, and there were 9 players on each team instead of 6 like today. But this game changed everything, because it proved hockey could be played year-round, not just when ponds froze over in winter. Pretty wild that hockey was being played indoors before most people even had indoor plumbing. Our 14th fact is absolutely bonkers, because I bet you didn't know about Scott Foster, the accountant who became an NHL legend in one night. This dude was just doing people's taxes during the day, but he was also signed up as an emergency backup goalie for the Chicago Blackhawks, basically meaning if both real goalies got hurt, they'd call him. Well, in 2018, that actually happened, and Scott got the call while he was probably working on someone's tax returns. He rushed to the arena, put on the gear, and played the last 14 minutes of an NHL game against the Winnipeg Jets. And get this, he stopped all 7 shots he faced and won the damn game. The crowd went absolutely crazy. His teammates carried him off the ice like he won the Stanley Cup, and this random accountant became more famous than players who had been grinding for years. Scott went from calculating numbers to stopping pucks, and now he's got his own hockey card. That's legendary. Wild. Speaking of wild games, we got number 13. The time the Detroit Red Wings played a hockey game inside an actual prison. Yeah, back in 1954, the Red Wings were looking for some unique practice games. So they decided to visit the Marquette prison in Michigan and play against the prison team called the Pirates. The prisoners had been practicing hockey in their yard and were actually pretty good, but they were about to face NHL superstars. The game was played inside the prison walls with guards watching from the stands, and the inmates got to forget about prison life for a few hours and play against their hockey heroes. The Red Wings won, but the prisoners played way better than anyone expected. Imagine telling people you once scored a goal against NHL players while doing time. That's a flex. Our 12th fact shows the NHL hates fun. Because I bet you didn't know that the league banned neon-colored gloves and helmets in the early 2000s because they thought bright colors were too distracting. Players started showing up with these sick neon green, pink, and yellow gloves that looked amazing on TV and made the game more exciting to watch. But the NHL said nope and banned all the cool colors because they wanted to keep hockey traditional and professional. So instead of letting players express themselves with awesome gear, the league forced everyone to wear boring black, white, and red equipment. Some players tried to sneak in bright colors anyway, but referees would make them change gloves during games. Man, the NHL really knows how to kill the vibe sometimes. Our 11th fact is straight ridiculous, because I bet you didn't know that the Toronto Maple Leafs actually tried to draft a dog named Blue in the 1970s as a publicity stunt. Back then, NHL drafts had way more rounds than today, and teams would run out of real players to pick, so they started getting creative with their late-round selections. The Maple Leafs thought it would be funny to draft this dog, who was the team mascot, probably hoping to get some laughs and media attention, but the NHL wasn't having it and immediately voided the pick for not meeting league guidelines. Still, for a brief moment, Blue the dog was technically an NHL draft pick, which is more than most hockey players can say. That's one draft pick that definitely wouldn't have signed a contract. But it's also top 10 times, so we're going to dive a little deeper, and I bet you've never heard of how the NHL's first All-Star game literally started as a GoFundMe before GoFundMe even existed. Yeah, meet the story behind hockey's biggest tradition. This shows how hockey players used to have each other's backs, because I bet you didn't know that the first All-Star game wasn't just about helping one injured player. It actually started a tradition of NHL players taking care of each other like a big family. After Ace Bailey's benefit game worked so well, the league kept organizing these special games whenever a player got seriously hurt or was struggling financially. Players would volunteer their time for free, fans would pack the arenas, and everyone knew their ticket money was going to help a fellow hockey player in need. This happened way before player unions or fancy insurance plans existed. So these benefit games were literally the difference between a player's family eating or going hungry. The craziest part is that rival players who would normally be trying to knock each other's heads off would suddenly become teammates for one night, all because they knew hockey was dangerous and any one of them could be the next guy needing help. My boys had some real brotherhood back then, and it gets bloody. This is number 9, because I bet you didn't know that Jacques Plante, the first goalie to wear a mask, was actually forced into it by a horrific injury that split his face wide open. Back in 1959, goalies played without any face protection whatsoever. Just imagine standing in front of 100-mile-per-hour shots with nothing protecting your face except prayer. During a game against the New York Rangers, a shot hit Jacques right in the face and broke his nose so badly that blood was pouring everywhere, and you could see bone through the cut. The team doctor stitched him up right there in the locker room, but when the coach told him to go back in the game, Jacques said, "Not without protection." He had been secretly practicing with a mask he designed himself, and this was his chance to use it. The coach didn't want him to wear it because he thought it looked weak, but Jacques refused to play without it. So he became the first NHL goalie to wear a mask in a game, and even though other players made fun of him and called him scared, every single goalie in the league was wearing masks within a few years. Man, sometimes it takes getting your face smashed to make a smart decision. But for number 8, we gotta talk about a real hero, because I bet you didn't know that Willie O'Ree broke the NHL's color barrier in 1958. But he did it while being legally blind in one eye from a hockey injury. Willie had lost most of his vision in his right eye when he got hit by a puck during a junior game, but he kept this secret for his entire career because he knew teams wouldn't sign a partially blind player. So when the Boston Bruins called him up to become the first black player in NHL history, he was not only dealing with racist fans screaming horrible things at him from the stands, but he was also playing professional hockey with basically one good eye. Players would target his blind side during games, fans would throw garbage at him, and some arenas wouldn't even let him stay in the same hotels as his white teammates. But Willie kept playing and kept quiet about his eye injury for over 40 years until he finally revealed the truth in an interview. This man was literally playing NHL hockey on expert difficulty mode and still managed to make history. That's just incredible. And so is number 7, because what if I told you that NHL teams can literally grab random people from the crowd to play goalie if both their goalies get injured during a game? The emergency goalie rule says that if a team starting goalie and backup goalie both get hurt in the same game, they can sign anybody, and I mean anybody, to a one-day contract and put them in net. This person doesn't have to be a professional hockey player. They just have to be available and willing to get on the ice. Most teams keep a list of local goalies they can call, usually guys who play in beer leagues or used to play college hockey, but technically they could grab a fan from the stands if they had to. The emergency goalie gets paid NHL minimum wage for that one game, which is usually around $500, and they get to keep the jersey and stick as souvenirs. But here's the wild part. This emergency goalie plays for whichever team needs them, even if they're a fan of the opposing team. Imagine being a lifelong Rangers fan and suddenly having to play goalie for the Devils. That's a loyalty test right there. But that's nothing new, because for number 6, there's no way you knew about George Vezna, the goalie who literally played every single game for 15 straight years, until the day he died. This man never missed a game from 1910 to 1925. No sick days, no injuries, no family emergencies, nothing. George played through broken bones, the flu, and even kept playing when he started coughing up blood during games in his final season. Back then, teams didn't have backup goalies, so if Georges couldn't play, some random player would have to go in net, and the team would probably lose badly. He felt responsible for his teammates and refused to let them down, even when his body was clearly failing him. During his last game, Georges collapsed on the ice during the first period and was coughing up so much blood that they had to carry him off. He died just a few months later from tuberculosis, and that's when the NHL realized they needed backup goalies, because no player should have to risk their life just to avoid missing a game. The league created the Vezna trophy in his honor, which goes to the best goalie each year. Man, that level of dedication is both inspiring and tragic. And that's especially the case for number 5, because what if I told you there's a loophole in NHL trades that let one goalie get traded 4 different times in a single offseason? Yeah, backup goalie Bill Ranford got traded 4 different times, including being traded for the exact same player twice. This happened because NHL teams were basically playing hot potato with players they didn't really want but couldn't get rid of. First, Bill got traded from one team to another, then that team immediately traded him to a third team, who then traded him to a fourth team, and finally, that team traded him back to the second team for the same player they had originally traded him for. So Bill literally went in a circle and ended up where he started, except now he had to move his family 4 different times and probably got really tired of packing boxes. The crazy part is that Bill didn't even know about some of these trades until reporters called him to ask how he felt about being traded again. Imagine getting a phone call like, "Hey, you've been traded to Edmonton," and you're like, "Wait, I thought I was in Edmonton already." The NHL trade deadline can be wild, but this was just chaos. But Patrick Kane is unstoppable, because for number 4, you might not have known that Kane was so powerful he could make an entire arena go silent with confusion. See, his Stanley Cup winning goal in 2010 caused the biggest celebration confusion in hockey history because nobody could find the puck for several minutes. Kane scored this goal in overtime to win the Stanley Cup for the Chicago Blackhawks, and he immediately started celebrating like crazy, throwing his gloves and stick in the air and skating around like he'd lost his mind. But here's the problem. Nobody else knew the puck had gone in the net, not even the referee. The puck had slipped through a tiny gap between the goalpost and the net padding, so it was completely hidden from view. While Kane was celebrating, everyone else on the ice was still playing hockey because they thought the game was still going on. His own teammates were confused. The other team kept trying to clear the puck, and the referee was looking around like, why is this guy celebrating? It took almost 5 minutes of reviewing video footage and literally tearing apart the net padding before they found the puck stuck inside the goal. Meanwhile, Kane knew he had scored the whole time, but probably started second-guessing himself when nobody else was celebrating with him. That must have been the longest 5 minutes of his life, waiting for everyone else to figure out he just won the Stanley Cup. But look, now we're in the top 3, which means we're going deep in our bag, and we gotta talk about how the Stanley Cup got completely disrespected before it became hockey's most famous trophy. I've seen the Stanley Cup get passed around like a party trophy, but for years it's been a tradition for the most prestigious award in hockey to belong to whoever could win it. But back in the day, the Stanley Cup wasn't even meant for professional hockey players. It was originally created in 1893 for Canada's top amateur hockey club, and the guy who made it, Lord Stanley, never even saw a Stanley Cup final game in his life. This trophy was just sitting around, being won by random amateur teams who played hockey for fun, not money. Teams like the Montreal Victorias and the Winnipeg Victorias were fighting over this cup while having day jobs as bank tellers and store clerks. But the craziest part is that Lord Stanley only spent about $50 on this trophy. That's like $1,500 today, and now it's worth millions, and is literally the most famous trophy in all of sports. The NHL didn't even get control of the Stanley Cup until 1926, which means for over 30 years, this legendary trophy was just being passed around by amateur players who probably had no idea they were holding what would become the holy grail of hockey. Yeah, the most important trophy in hockey started as a cheap amateur award that nobody really cared about. But it's still not as crazy as number 2. Because I bet you had no idea that for 25 straight years, the NHL was basically a closed club with only 6 teams. And if you weren't one of those teams, you were completely screwed. From 1942 to 1967, the original 6 era meant that only the Boston Bruins, Chicago Blackhawks, Detroit Red Wings, Montreal Canadiens, New York Rangers, and Toronto Maple Leafs existed in the entire NHL. That's it. Just 6 teams for the whole league for over 2 decades. Every single NHL player had to be on one of these 6 rosters, which meant the competition was absolutely insane because there were only about 120 spots available for hockey players in the entire professional league. Cities like Los Angeles, Dallas, Tampa Bay, and dozens of other places that have NHL teams today were completely shut out and couldn't even dream of having professional hockey. Players would sometimes wait years just to get a chance to play in the NHL because there literally wasn't room for them anywhere else. And the crazy part is that these 6 teams knew they had all the power, so they could basically do whatever they wanted. They controlled all the best players, all the money, and all the decisions about hockey's future. It was like having a secret club where only 6 kids were allowed to play, and everyone else had to watch from outside the fence. Man, imagine if the entire NFL only had 6 teams for 25 years. That's basically what happened to hockey. But number 1 is straight up insane, because there's no way you knew that you can watch NHL games in virtual reality and literally feel like you're sitting on the bench with the players. Yeah, back in 2018, the NHL announced they were going virtual, which means anyone with a VR headset can watch live games from anywhere in the arena. You can sit behind the goalie, stand on the ice during warm-ups, or even get a bird's eye view from the rafters like you're flying around the arena. But it gets even crazier, because in 2023, the NHL took things to the next level and started letting fans put themselves into the game as digital avatars. They use special cameras to scan your entire body, create a virtual version of you, and then drop you right into the middle of NHL action. You can literally stand next to Connor McDavid during a power play, watch Sidney Crosby take a face-off from 2 feet away, or see what it's like when a 100-mile-per-hour slap shot comes flying at your face. The technology is so good that you can feel the cold air from the ice, hear players talking to each other during breaks, and experience what it's actually like to be in the NHL without having to spend 20 years training to make it to the pros. God damn, I can dunk on LeBron from my couch. Wait, wrong sport. I can score on Carey Price from my living room while wearing pajamas. That's wild. But not as crazy as the time a puck got stuck in a player's helmet during a playoff game, only for him to skate around for 2 minutes before anyone noticed. Yeah, it turns out the NHL is full of rare moments, like goalies accidentally scoring goals from their own end, or players losing their skates mid-game and having to hop on one foot to the bench. Look, if you want to see more crazy NHL content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of these wild hockey stories. This video is over, so thanks for watching.